This week, in the enterprise news, a partnership that helps with supply chain risks, application networking, YARA Rules, IPO plans that are just as secretive as the company itself, Responder.py detection across an entire enterprise's infrastructure, DevOps security training and education, and Aruba Networks, that's right, the wireless company, is debuting an UEBA solution. Then we'll talk about Equifax and make a lot of speculations about security risk and security leadership. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. The teleprompter now has artificial intelligence, Doug, and updates itself. It's awesome. This week, and talk about them as it relates to enterprise security. You're going to do great.
I think that people think that you and I talk like every day at night. You know, It's like, hey, what are you doing? It's kind of a bit of an exhausting week. And I think that we noticed that a little bit in the stories for this week as well.
LogRhythm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logRhythm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Pony Express. Check out their line of penetration testing devices, including the Pwn Pad, Pwn Phone, and Pwn Pro. For enterprises, there's Pwn Pulse, providing continuous visibility into wired, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth spectrums across all physical locations, including remote sites and branch offices. For all those hard-to-reach places, there's Pony Express. Visit them on the web at ponyexpress.com. Are you worried about PCI compliance? Does your development team understand or care about security? Are you ready to face a breach of your customer sensitive data? See the worst that can happen before it does. Black Hills Information Security can help you help management see the future. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a web application penetration test can mitigate the risk before you go live. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. This is episode 62, and it is, in fact, September 19th, 2017, I hope. And on the lines via Skype, we have none other than John Strand. John, welcome back. I missed you.
Yeah, me too. What the hell happens? I take like 2 weeks off to go teach at SANS, do a couple of things. And like what, half of the American population's data is breached publicly via Equifax? How in the hell do I miss these things, Paul?
It's like when it coincides always when you're teaching at SANS, like some big event happens.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So we need to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
No more big events when John is teaching at SANS. So if you're Equifax, delay that till after the SANS conferences, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. A couple of quick announcements before we get started. Go to itpro.tv/enterprise security. Use the code ES30. Try it free for 7 days and get 30% off your monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. Sign up for the supervisor portal. That's right. Your employer can get you some training, and they can manage your training. They can assign training modules. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of training, yes, try it. Do it. Bsides Connecticut is a day-long information security conference that is sold out. It's happening on October 7th. If you're interested in sponsoring, that comes with tickets. And there's a waiting list. You can find out more at bsidesct.org. Okay. John, we've got some news to talk about this week. I'm happy to say it's better than last week. Matt Alderman filled in for you last week, and the stories were they were rough. They were rough. I think Matt,
these are good stories this week.
Matt got a little confused on JavaScript versus Java, but other than that, things were okay, which is just funny. And speaking of Java, it's kind of interesting. I've been following the Java stuff somewhat closely, and I was reading something the other day that said there's 9 million Java developers, and it's still one of the most popular language, especially on the server side for enterprises. I didn't realize it was that widely adopted. So last week we talked about how long it's going to take for Java to go by the wayside, much like COBOL did. I don't think we're there anytime soon. I think there's a much bigger adoption rate that has happened over time. So much, even though Oracle's like, yeah, we're not going to do the enterprise edition anymore. Like, it's free now. We're giving it to an open source project. Like, all this stuff is happening on the Java front, including vulnerabilities. So,
well, in the Java thing, I mean, we still see it in quite a few of our customers' environments today. It's not going away. Now, Java, as far as like a web browser plugin, that's definitely starting to go away. But as far as Java being used, it's still stupid in many places it's being used. Yeah. And I think that if we're looking at kind of a time frame, we still have some infrastructures to this day that are still using COBOL for batch processing and financial systems. So if we look at that as like a lead time, granted, it's not used in very many places, but where it is used, it's definitely critical. If we try to move that over to Java and we do some quick math, just behind the napkin calculations, people are going to be using Java until the heat death of the universe. So
anyway, in the news, CyberGRX partners with BitSite to address supply chain risks. Now, they call out the Target as the example. After it was breached, of course, by the HVAC supplier, and they call that out as a kind of a supply chain thing. Which, okay, that's fair, I guess. CyberGRX is a global risk exchange providing a storehouse of validated third-party risk assessments. I believe we interviewed someone from CyberGRX on Startup Security Weekly, if memory serves. BitSite is the leader of the security ratings market, with their ability to continuously rate security performance of third parties. It's interesting. You would think these two would compete, but apparently they're partnering.
Yeah, I thought it was weird too. I thought for sure it was going to be a competition between these two. But this is I'll set it up a little bit for the people that are listening, and then I want to get your take on it, Paul. So the idea is there's enough information publicly about many organizations where you can do analysis, you can do assessment of how their external interfaces are configured. So for example, not just interfaces, but their external exposure. If the organization has multiple accounts and multiple breaches on something like Pwn List, or they're on Have I Been Pwned, and there's lots and lots and lots of emails that have been compromised, that would give you a higher score rating. If your organization, if you're running built with on the outside doing some basic recon, and your organization shows a high instance of Server 2003's servers for the web infrastructure, that's going to give you a higher risk rating. If any of the infrastructure that showed up, let's say Shodan, pull down banner information for the services, it shows that you're running out of date software, that's going to give you a higher security risk scorecard. Is there value in actually doing that to assess the quality of the product that the organization is going to produce for you? Basically, I'm asking, is there a correlation between the security of an organization protecting their own assets and the security and the quality of the products they produce?
I think there's some, certainly there's no hard and fast relationship there, right? But I think it can factor in, like, maybe a 20% of a factor that says, the security of the organization relates to the security of the product. But it could just be very hyper-focused on the product and not focused on the security of the organization. Or maybe it's the other way around. But I don't know. I don't think it's a really good... Unless it's a services-based company, I think, with CyberGRX, right, they're saying, well, if you're going to partner with or use this company's services, we've done an evaluation. They're not just evaluating the company, but also somewhat the security of their products and how they treat maybe the data going in and out of their products, right? So CyberGRX, I think, does a good job in interviewing them. I found that out. I don't know something just fell in the studio. Sorry, I thought I was being attacked. So I think they do a good job of helping you understand the risk of people that you're either using services from, partnering with, that kind of thing.
So, but using the story that they set this up with, the Target breach, I have no idea what the security was of the HVAC vendor, whether or not it was good or bad, but would it have any bearing whatsoever as to whether or not there was default credentials baked into the firmware? No idea. Right. I don't think that it ties together that well. I think that it's still an important thing. Like you said, I think that the percentages, put it into a 20% category with a company to basically say, hey, you guys have tons of breached credentials and you're trying to sell us crap. Maybe you need to get your house in order. I think it's good for the hygiene of the industry as a whole, but I don't necessarily believe it's going to be great in making the sole determining factor for each point-by-point decision to purchase a product.
Riverbed is touting application networking. I don't know what that means.
Dude, I was hoping that you would have read this and know what the hell it is. Dude, I went to their website. I read their website. I read this entire press release.
And you still don't really know what problem they solve or the solutions they have.
No, it's basically cool technology, cool, trust us, it's awesome. The future of networking, end-to-end network application and end-user experience monitoring, delivering flawless end-user experience for employees and customers. It's just, this is, and here's the thing, Paul, we know people at Riverbed. They're not a dumb company.
No.
They're an amazing company with some really amazing products. So we'll put it out. Is there anybody at Riverbed that could come on the show and explain what the hell this is, cutting through all the marketing hype? Because this is awful.
Yeah, I just, you look on, and Matt Alderman and I talked about this last week, John, right? You look on the website, and I want to understand the problem that they solve. I want to understand their point of view on that problem and how they might solve it differently or uniquely or in a more innovative fashion than other people, or maybe just in a way I've never thought about. And I want to know something about how they do that. And so many press releases and websites, this one is a prime example. Transform your network with SD-WAN. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Redefine your network with Riverbed. Learn how to build the network of tomorrow. Like, what is the network of tomorrow? I have a network today that has problems. Why do I need the network of tomorrow? I don't get it.
I know what this is. They're done with TCP/IP. There's no IP version 6. It's brand new. It's SDR. I don't know.
But the sad part, and you alluded to this, John, is that they're making an announcement, which is what we're trying to cover. They're touting application. This could be a fantastic solution. It's just it's lost in the messaging.
Yeah. So
the
invite goes out. Is it okay? We say invite to our friends at Riverbed who are smart, amazing tech people. Send us an email, and we'd like to get you on the show. And it would be great if we could do a comparison about what their marketing says and what their tech people say, and kind of do that kind of diffusing of the jargon here, because this is just awful.
Malwarebytes Labs, of all people, have made a post about YARA rules. And I say of all people because, I guess it does relate. I guess it is, YARA is part of an endpoint detection and response strategy, potentially, and can be used to identify malware. So, okay, that's not a stretch. And John, I know you've got some experience with YARA. What I've heard is, it's like several things that are open source. Like, yeah, you can do it, but it's a huge time investment and kind of a bear to manage. Is that your experience?
That's my experience. Most of the YARA rules out there are pretty much garbage. They basically are looking for specific strings inside of executables, maybe mapped up with some hash values, and that's okay. YARA itself, I think, is a great concept, right? Mm-hmm. But sharing that IOC information and doing that and kind of sharing up what we're seeing, I think that's cool. But in all honesty, most organizations, the YARA rules you get are just hash and string matches, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But this is a good article. I mean, actually going through and explaining YARA, I think this is a great article. It's useful, and a lot of people have no idea what the hell YARA is. It's a great step into YARA, and I wish I would have had it when I first was dealing with this from years ago.
Mm. Is it one of those open source things that an enterprise could adopt and be successful with?
Yes. There's a bunch of tools. I know Derek was getting ready to do some webcasts on this, that you can actually create YARA rules, and there's tools that actually look for YARA hits on your computer system. So that's helpful. But it's basically a way of exchanging information about malware and then being able to detect that malware in an environment across like an IOC, right up an IOC. And that's not necessarily, IOCs are different, but it's the same concept. Indicators of compromise in YARA rules that you can share as an open source. I think Styx does something similar as well. Yep. So it's a way of sharing information about malware. And there's value in that in some limited respects. But right now, the way it's being used is just a glorified blacklist.
Have you heard of Palantir?
Yes, we know Palantir very well.
Okay. Do you know what they do?
Yes. So basically, it's large data analytics and trending. And Palantir is one of those companies that's very secretive. They do a tremendous amount of work for the United States government, both classified and unclassified. And it's basically pulling in a tremendous amount of information and then trying to find patterns within that large information data set.
So machine learning and artificial intelligence and big data.
There's no question.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no question. But I think that they're closer to what you and I talk about when we talk about machine learning and big data analytics, is we don't talk about a tool that automatically does everything for you, but something that will give you distilled information, and then you can sift through the data to actually distilled raw data sets. So you can actually build that up and get discernible information from it. That's where Palantir shines better than I think anybody on the face of the planet.
Interesting.
And the fact that they've been really, really quiet, especially with all this push for artificial intelligence and machine learning that we're seeing everywhere, has been weird to me for the past few months. It's very strange that I haven't seen them in this area making a play, but now it looks like they have a reason for it. It looks like they're working on something big.
Symmetria, I know you and Gotti have like a bromance going on. I think that's the best way to describe it. I can't blame you. I sat down with Gotti at Black Hat at a short chat with him. I wish I could have spent more time because he's an awesome person. They have a post on the Symmetria site about detecting responder.py. And I know you know some of their technology, John. That's not just FUD, right? Like they can actually do some of that with their deception technology, correct?
Yeah, they can actually detect it. So a little bit of background for the people that are listening. Link local multicast name resolution is basically where your computer system can't find an answer via DNS to look up an IP address. So it asks the machines local to it if they happen to know the IP address of a system. It's a broadcast that goes out to all local systems. And you can be running a tool called Responder and lie. So if someone's trying to go to Google, you can lie and tell them the IP address for Bing, and imagine the horrors that ensue there. And you can also use it to intercept credentials and hashes and things like that. Usually NTLM v2. It's not an NTLM v2 hash, but it's an authentication of NTLM v2. Now, what this tool does, it actually feeds fake information into an attacker that's trying to run this attack. And then you can actually point them to a server where Maze Runner is set up so we can track them and do some really cool stuff. So Symmetria just has been awesome in this kind of breadcrumbs Maze Runner analogy of creating fake kind of upside down internets for bad guys and environments, and just love what they're doing. And actually, ironically enough, Bo and Brian and hold on, let me get the name of the tool.
It sounds similar to Devlin Networks has similar technology, more tightly coupled to Active Directory security and less on the deception side, although they have a deception component that plays inside of their products. So.
Absolutely. So we're going to be releasing at DerbyCon in just a few days Responder Guard, which does something very, very, very similar in giving fake credentials out. So Derek, Bo, and Brian will be releasing Responder Guard, and we have a Security Weekly webcast on this and a whole bunch of other tools coming up next week after DerbyCon for the people that can attend live. So Symmetria, commercial tool, great. We love Gotti. We're going to be releasing some open source tools that do something similar. And to be fair, just so everyone knows, one of the reasons why we like Gotti and the people at Symmetria is they release a lot of their stuff for free for limited engagements, and they release a lot of tools and research to the community publicly as well. So very cool stuff.
Also, Devlin Networks has the very same capabilities as you're describing, John, being presented at DerbyCon. They did a series of 5 technical segments on Paul Security Weekly, showed all of the attacks running, including Responder, and showed their product detecting them. So if you're kind of skeptical about that technology, you can actually go watch them do it live on Security Weekly in 5 different technical segments, which is awesome. So and they're constantly building on their platform new capabilities, and they have an open source thing that they released. I'll send that information to you after, John. They'll probably be coming on the shows more to talk about their recently released open source offering. So
see, and that's why we love companies like. And isn't Javelin an Israeli company too?
They are. Yes.
Dude, the Israelis are absolutely kicking ass.
Amazing.
All the way up and down. So that's cool.
Let's see. So this is kind of boring stories, to be honest with you. Nothing as exciting as what we've talked about so far, John. You may not be in control, but you're still responsible. Sure, I think that plays into our next topic.
And apple pie.
Yeah. White Hat launches a DevOps security and training education. I mean, yeah, they should. I mean,
well, that's what they do, and I think that's a great approach, right?
Yeah, they have a great reputation, so I would totally take training from them or recommend our developers take training from them, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. This one from Aruba debuts 360 Secure Fabric. including introspect EUBA. I was just curious, what's Aruba?
What? Doesn't it seem like they're getting into this party a little late, Paul?
Well, Aruba, of course, was bought by Hewlett-Packard. Now it's making more sense. So they're going to make some of these integrations. Is a new introspect user entity and behavior analytics offering to comes to Aruba from EUB vendor YARA, which HP acquired. Oh, okay. So this is just HP glomming their acquisitions together. Which, I mean, it could be a good thing. Aruba and YARA both were fantastic companies, now part of HP. Hopefully equally still fantastic companies. If HP wants to blend them together, I think that's great.
Yeah. Now, the trick is, for anybody that's listening, Paul, I think that we need to get some caution on the table right now. So if you're new to computer security and you're seeing HP that's basically pulling Aruba and they're pulling YARA and all these things together, and you get all excited, right? You're like, yay, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. This almost never goes well. Just giving you some examples.
Historically,
so IBM, IBM purchasing tons of companies and trying to string them together, and then they ultimately die on the vine. You have Cisco, which basically almost every single company that they've tried to purchase up until fairly recently, they did a fantastically horrible job of actually integrating these products into the Cisco line and making them more or less unified. I think that I got better with Firepower and SourceFire whenever they acquired SourceFire and some of the newer things that they've been working on. But by and large, whenever a large company buys a lot of small companies and then tries to hobble that crap together and make it work, it usually doesn't work for at least a year or two. If it ever works at all. So anything that you're doing, looking and you're like, we're going to purchase this now that they have it incorporated, run it in the lab, set it up, test it thoroughly, because odds are it's not going to work the way it's supposed to at all, because they're shifting all of their development cycles from making product X work really, really well to now trying to integrate products X with their overall ecosystem. And that creates problems. And Paul, are there any other vendors that you can think of? I know IBM and Cisco are the two biggest ones that jump into mind. And I know HP was like this for years, just buying up companies and then they died.
CA certainly had that reputation. However, more recently,
CA Unicenter.
Well, and more recently, they've made the Veracode acquisition and some other security and technology-related acquisitions that really make sense. And from everything I've heard and spoken with people, things are going really well. So I think a lot of these larger companies, John, really realized that they were making these acquisitions and really screwing it up and trying to do a better job. And that takes time in a really large organization like that. But I really do believe in covering this technology and security in depth in this aspect for the better part of a year now. I really do see it getting better. However, I do still hear horror stories. So
no, we do. And I think that the other thing on the other side of that, on the other side of that spectrum, and I don't know what your opinion is on this, but a lot of my customers, whenever they approach me at IANS calls or SANS conferences or anything like that, they say, well, we want to go buy hot technology X. And I'm cautioning them against doing that. There is something to be said about a unified environment. Let's just use Symantec or McAfee. As much as we rip on those products constantly, the fact is a lot of those products can have unified incident response. They have unified firewall management. They have unified endpoint protection. And being able to go to one vendor to handle all of those things is somewhat important. Also, a lot of those vendors have features that you can turn on to do 80% of what hot, super cool startup security X is doing. So a lot of my customers, especially in the endpoint security market, there are so many vendors that are coming up trying to do the exact same things that I'm telling people, step back, pause, wait for what's going to happen with the big players that you already have in your environment, because odds are they're going to implement these technologies eventually. And it's going to be much better to roll it into an existing infrastructure, existing alerting infrastructure, existing management infrastructure, than to try to have 15 vendors do what one vendor does and then try to correlate everything from multiple different logins and event logs and everything. It's just, there is something to be said about tying everything together. It's just usually it doesn't work really well when it happens like this week, they merge and you expect the product to integrate seamlessly in a month from now.
Right. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break, come back, talk about the Equifax breach. I'm really excited to hear what John your thoughts and opinions are on some of the things about this breach. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.